Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Good evening. Welcome to day one of our 4th annual TEDx conference at ASIJ. My name is Kwan, currently a junior at the American School in Japan and the organizer for this year's event. When we look back at last year, the start of the new decade, everything was so monumental. With the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, millions joined in protest for uplifting racial justice. The widespread transmission of bushfires in Australia to the west coast burned millions of acres and displaced thousands of people and their lives. There was also the 2020 U.S. presidential elections, one of the most contested and diverse elections in U.S. history. All of this against the backdrop of a global pandemic that brought the entire world to a standstill. However, among this period of heavy disruption, there was a rise of something notable in the world. When our globally connected world felt a switch turn off that stopped everyone from moving forward, our minds took a pause to simply reflect. This was a time for universal emphasis on personal reflection and reevaluation. We were forced to take a step back and simply reflect. Reflect on ourselves, our relationships, our place in society, and our own beliefs and values. With this said, we would like to welcome you to our TEDxYouth at ASIJ conference this year, centering upon this timely idea of reflections starting from ourselves. Over the course of 2 days starting from today, we'll be featuring 8 speakers from the American School in Japan, each emphasizing their own versions of reflections and their own stories of turning inward and changing themselves. TEDx is an independently organized TED conference featuring ideas worth spreading by us, high school students. What makes our ASIJ conference especially special is that it is entirely organized by students. Unlike other typical events, our TEDx community elevates student voices on a global platform, which is such a unique opportunity. Since November last year, our whole team has devoted a great passion and determination in the creation of this year's event. Though there have been obstacles throughout the process, we are extremely proud to have the privilege of presenting these talks with you today. This year's conference will be special in that it is a 2-day event. Today we'll be hearing from 4 of our speakers sharing their own journeys and experiences on our theme reflections, and 4 other speakers will be featured tomorrow. Between the talks, there will be 2 short intermissions featuring some of our passion projects from student voices here in our ASIJ community. Through this event, we hope that you are also able to individually reflect along with some of the captivating talks you hear from our speakers. So, with that said, let's welcome reflections starting from ourselves.
Kicking off today's event will be Naomi Liddell, who will be sharing her experiences on becoming the best athlete she can be.
The sparkle you can see in their eyes, the excitement in their voice, the life you can just hear in their words. Next time you hear someone talking about their passion, pay attention to how they light up. Hi, I'm Naomi Liddell, and I'd like to talk about my own story, its ups and downs, and how it led me to find my passion in life. You might know me as the Naomi who works out. I'm almost always complaining about some swim set I did over the weekend, or talking about my workout. I use exercise as some sort of meditation. If I'm upset, I'll go swim. Bad test score? I'll hammer out a cycling session early in the morning. Even taking long walks helps me think when I'm stressed. Now, I'm not saying this is the best anger management technique, but I'm pretty sure by now you can see how closely intertwined athletics is with my life. It's been that way since I was a tiny girl, splashing in the pool, struggling to finish 50 meters of butterfly. Then, in freshman year, a big change happened. A few days before my swim finals, I got injured, keeping me from the pool for at least a month. I was devastated. The one thing I had used to ground myself had been ripped away, and now I had no outlet for the negative thoughts I often had about myself and my body. I turned to a new thing to control: my food intake. Within that month away from the pool, I scrambled to restrict carbohydrates, fats, and as many calories as possible without doing any research. I began using the spin bike excessively in order to stay fit. This photo is the first of hundreds of post-cycling pictures. However, once I returned to the pool, I was struggling to keep up, my 100-meter freestyle time gaining 10 seconds. This of course affected my mental as well. I was so excited to return back to the pool, but all of a sudden I was weak, slow, and in my eyes, no longer of use to the team. I wondered if I deserved to exist. Nearly a year of aimless workouts passed. It was like a strange cycle. I would work out to feel better about myself, but I never did. So I'd work out for longer and harder. Eventually, I found myself begging to use the fitness center's bike during my free period, join varsity swim after school, and then use the spin bike at home before dinner. At my worst, I was logging in 645 minutes per week of cycling alone, and feeling guilty for not hitting 700. It was unbearable. I wondered if I deserved to exist. This is one of my workout planners that I used to keep in the notes of my planner. SW means varsity practice, DR means dryland, SDR means a lifting workout, and meet, of course, means a swim meet. All the other numbers are the minutes I spent hating myself on the exercise bike where I chiseled my existence away. Through the strange pipe dream I had given myself how exercise would save my life, I was failing to see how I was ruining it. I became too tired and too cold to engage with anyone, shutting myself off, feeling as though I was worthless and didn't deserve anything. Simple acts like saying hello became too much energy for my body to spare. Notice how the only swimmer in this photo who's wearing a coat and long sun pants in the pool area? I was still freezing cold that entire day. Did you know that constantly underfueling your body causes it to start saving energy wherever it can? My resting heart rate dropped to 35 beats per minute, my body refusing to spare calories on extra heartbeats. 1 year ago, during this same TEDx event, despite being fascinated with the topics, I found myself slipping in and out of consciousness as my body tried to conserve energy. It was like my entire world had become cold and lifeless. It was as if I didn't exist. Then, coronavirus hit, forcing a change of environment. At this point, several people had told me that they were worried, and I'd even been to the hospital because my menstrual cycle had stopped working. The pool and gym were closed, so I wanted to improve myself in a different, socially distant way. That's when I began reading about nutrition, hoping to find some source that would help me feel like me again, to help regain my strength and athletic ability. My hyper-motivation for exercise was softened into a balance between study and workouts that were less strenuous. I pored over articles detailing the difference between monosaccharides and polysaccharides, refined versus unrefined sugars, and then tested my performance after having one or the other. Eventually, through trial and failure, I improved my pre- and post-workout nutrition and even saw positive benefits in my results, such as being able to bike an extra kilometer within the same amount of time. This improvement inspired me to educate myself further on having a healthy relationship with exercise and to regain my lost weight. I wanted to be the best I could be. The choice to actively study the science behind sports was one of the best choices I have ever made in my life. My once gray world was now aflame with all the colors of passion to learn, to improve, to come back to school better than ever. I carried my passion for sports science into school when the school year started, allowing me to gain an unlikely favorite subject, biology. Everything I had studied on my own now falls into place like puzzle pieces, linked together by the concepts we learn in class. For example, I had heard the term lactic acid being thrown around in practice, but I finally learned in class that it's a byproduct of our bodies attempting to create energy without adequate oxygen levels. I had never felt a particular draw to any class before, but every time I made a connection between something I had previously studied with a new concept from class, I felt like I was rediscovering a reason to exist again. So what am I seeing here after all this? Passion is a driving force behind all meaningful action, and it is a powerful tool. Even when I thought I would be stuck in a body too weak to swim again, it was the passion about learning that brought me back to life. But I wouldn't have been able to recover without the first step of trying. Because I swallowed the anxiety to trying something new and took the plunge, I am giving this speech right now. In no way am I prescribing working out or studying as a way to fix an issue in your life. Instead, I am simply saying how trying something new led me to find a passion, giving me something to live for again. It gave me the motivation to wake up in the morning once more and actually enjoy the day, not just exist. I know it's incredibly difficult to just go out and find something that you're passionate about, but it's more important to just be willing to try something new. Who knows? It might become something more important to you than you ever thought it would be. I want you to think about something that you're interested in, but haven't tried yet. Do you have it in your mind? It's so important to take the plunge in trying something new. Next time you can, I want you to spend some time just focusing on that interest. Give it a chance. All in all, passion was the tool that allowed me to stand up again and keep living. And I want you to find yours and let it bring a spark to your life.
Thank you, Naomi, for sharing your story. It's amazing how combating your personal struggles with health led to the discovery of your passion for sports medicine. Being a high school student during the pandemic myself, I could relate to aspects of your story. Now, let's hear this from a male perspective. Let's give a warm welcome to our next speaker, Adam Plattek, who will be sharing his experiences on losing weight.
One in 5 people aged 10 to 19 are obese. My name is Adam Plattek, and I was one of those numbers. So what does it mean to be obese? On some level, obesity is nothing more than just a number. If you have a BMI over 30, then you're considered to be obese. But it's also a literal and figurative weight that can burden a person's health and mindset. So I'm here to ask you guys, why do you think people want to lose weight? Is it to look better, to feel better, to be more confident, to be healthier? The answer can be any or all of the above. For me at least, losing weight was about daily self-improvement. You see, I have visions of living a long, successful, and healthy life, and to do so, I need to make sure that I'm the best version of myself every single day. So how did my journey begin? My journey started when I was 6 years old and when my parents got a divorce. In order to cope with stress, I started to eat a lot. Why? Because I enjoyed eating food. And as I will get to later, there's nothing wrong with enjoying to eat food if you're doing it with discipline. But I wasn't. By my freshman year, I was super depressed and super ashamed of myself. I hadn't stopped eating and I was not confident at all. So I decided to go to the gym and try to lose weight. But I didn't really know how to use the machines or know how to properly work out. My inexperience and impatience unsurprisingly led to an inflammation on my disc when I attempted to deadlift more than I could handle. Quick story time. I needed a doctor, but it was Yom Kippur. For those of you that don't know what Yom Kippur is, it's actually the day of Jewish atonement. Jewish pro tip. Never force your dad to go anywhere other than the synagogue on Yom Kippur. Trust me, you will benefit from this. Actual pro tip, don't do deadlifts without knowing what you're doing. Both will acquire much atonement. This comedy of errors really continued my downward spiral. By November of my sophomore year, I weighed 100 kilograms and was around 37.5% body fat. The only thing that I was effectively managing to lose was hope. Then school closed because of COVID-19, and I was determined to make the most out of a terrible situation. I said to my friends, "It's time to get yoked." They laughed. During March, I went to the gym every single day. No deadlifts though. I started to gain a little bit more muscle and I lost a little bit of weight. But I was working out the same parts of my body every day and I wasn't doing it properly. When Japan went into lockdown, my gym dutifully shut its doors. And that's when I knew that getting yoked or getting fit would require myself to take greater initiative on my own. My friend then told me that he went on a run. That did not sound exciting. I hated running. Why would this matter to me? But he insisted that I should go on a run with him. That day, we ran 3.5 kilometers and I came home very sore. Then my friend told me that he ran 5 kilometers. Suddenly, this competitiveness insisted I couldn't let this man win. Soon, we would run to a hotel 2.7 kilometers out and back daily. 3 weeks after I started running, I went onto the scale and I saw that I lost 3 kilograms and 3% body fat. I was ecstatic. My friend and I continued to run 3 to 4 times a week, and as I continued to lose weight and as I continued to run, I started to feel much better about myself. By the end of May, my body fat percentage dipped below 30%. I was only really able to force myself to go out on these runs because of my friend. It's really important for you guys to have someone that you can rely on during these times. After lockdown finished, I continued to run 3 to 4 times a week with friends. And I also started going back to the gym. My friend encouraged me to start this new split, the 3-day split. Push day, pull day, leg day. In push day, I would work out chest, shoulders, and triceps. In pull day, I would work out back and biceps. And then the final day, I would work out legs. The combination of lifting and running helped me go down to around 82 kilograms. I committed 3 to 4 hours of my day, every day, to this fitness journey. And I really started to enjoy it. It's not easy losing weight in such a short amount of time. This journey really forced me to become more disciplined. Anyways, I was finally reaching the last 7 weeks of my diet. I was eating healthy, I was working out 6 times a week, and I was running 3 to 4 times a week. Everything was going great. Then I got hit by a taxi. While I was on one of my runs, I was a victim of a hit and run, and I broke my ankle. Then I questioned myself. Was everything that I had done up until then for nothing? Was I about to lose all my progress? On September 2nd, I had surgery on my right ankle, and around this time, I felt more depressed and less happy. I stopped doing rehab, which delayed my full recovery time. Then school started, and I tried to gain a healthy balance of school and rehab. That's when I started doing much better. After waiting 1 month, the doctors told me that I can go back to the gym. Seeing my friends in the gym for the last 7 weeks without me really got me to push myself to work harder than they ever did during the next month. When I walked into the gym, I noticed that all the progress that I had had before and all the work I had put in before wasn't for nothing. Even with these setbacks, I tried to look at the positives. As I started working out, I waited a whole month to start running again. The day the doctors gave me the clear to go, I was ecstatic. Today, February 18, 2021, I weigh 78 kilograms. My body fat percentage is around 20%. I went from this to this in 8 months. One thing I want to say is that this journey really wasn't easy. When I didn't receive results, I wanted to give up, but I was patient. I also faced loose skin, which was my worst nightmare. But now, loose skin and all, I wouldn't trade anything for it because this was part of my journey. Thanks to my friends and my personal drive to succeed, I was really able to come very far. I know that you guys are wondering, why is this guy bragging about losing weight? We get it, you're not overweight anymore. It's probably what you guys are saying to each other through the screen of yours. However, I want to say that there are 3 important steps people can take to become fit and healthier. ABS, accountability, balance, and self-control is the method. Accountability is a huge factor. It's sometimes really hard to achieve something when the task seems very challenging. My friend kept me on track by encouraging me to change my workout splits and to start running. You guys can have a coach, a friend, a parent, anyone that can help you achieve your goals. Having a good balance where you can focus on lifting, work, exercise, and most of all, having fun is super important. Otherwise, you're going to become obsessive and you will not succeed on the long term. When I started lifting, I thought that I was going to have to sacrifice school. But it's actually quite the contrary. My grades went up. And this was because deep down emotionally, I wasn't in the right place before. But now that I started lifting and losing weight, this emotional struggle was starting to fade away. You see, people can call me overweight, but if I'm the one in the gym, it shows that I'm the one trying to improve myself. And this idea alone has helped me come so far. And I want to touch on this caloric deficit idea. It's this idea that you burn more calories than you eat in one day. The diet that really helped me. You guys don't have to stop enjoying food. You guys can do it with discipline, just like I did. I would exercise more and I ate treats in a moderation. If you guys follow this method, little by little, you will see improvements. Finally, self-control is so important. You need to make a plan and stick to it. Force yourself to go to a gym or to a run. Don't just sit a session out because that's what's going to ruin your motivation and your entire plan. Forcing a routine literally shapes your whole life. School, work, anything that you put your mind into. There will be minor setbacks. In my case, a hit and run. But even through these times, you guys shouldn't give up. Especially if this guy was able to do it. My journey isn't finished. I intend to keep pushing my limits and become stronger, fitter, and healthier. This time to shred so that I can become leaner. This process isn't easy. But if you guys are dedicated to it, you will achieve your goals. Finally, don't be like me. Don't wait for a pandemic to change your life. Some of you guys, like me, just needed a push to achieve your goals. So choose to change your life before life finds a way to make you.
Thank you, Adam, for sharing another dimension to the topic of body health and weight loss. I'm sure we can all learn and apply from the innovative ABS program to maximize our own health. Next, we will be having a short intermission break starring one of our student artists, Dizon, here to perform his new song, Interplanetary.
Your love is interplanetary, galactic. I can't breathe when you want me. It's so entrancing. I can't be like this. I can't see it like this. Now it's known how many years I spent alone, how many times I checked my phone, how they was leaving me alone. Now I'm home, and you're next to me in my room, and I'm in love with how you do it. Our love is life, is a movement. I'm in love with your presence, baby. Presence, baby. Presence, baby. I'm in love with your presence, baby. Presence, baby. Presence, baby. I'm in love with your presence, baby. Presence, baby. Presence, baby. I've been in love with your presence lately. You make my life. Letters and pictures and kisses on mine. You make my life. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That was Will Herbert from grade 11. Thank you so much for sharing your music with us. Up next is Shirley Zuo, who will be sharing why she decided not to attend college.
A year ago, I realized that life is like the world of Minecraft, where there are two different types of people. There's Steve, the main character of the game, the one who is in control of the gaming controller. And there's a villager, who can only do as they're programmed, as they don't have access to their controller. The realization of this Minecraft analogy is the reason why I decided not to go to college. Let me explain. It was another ordinary school day in December of my junior year. As always, I was sitting at my desk studying for an upcoming semester exam. Until suddenly, I realized I studied until midnight because everyone else was. I prioritized work over everything because I had to maintain a 4.0 GPA. I took AP classes and was drowned in work. I did everything for college when it wasn't where I wanted to be. Tears of realization started pouring uncontrollably from my eyes. Something deep within me exploded, and my body was trying to express something that I've hid for too long. I noticed for the first time that my energy was put into the wrong things, and that I was following the mainstream. My actions were purely based on other people. I had no control over my actions until I chose to step out of the flow. The moment I stepped out, I knew there was no turning back. I saw an unpopulated road ahead of me, but I started walking anyway, hoping to find the right path for me. As I continued to march this deserted path, I started to feel more and more alone. This feeling magnified when I became a senior and everyone around me started talking about college applications. When people asked me where I would apply, I would name some random college and quickly change the subject. My closest friends always wondered why I hadn't started writing my essays when they were due in a month. My fear of judgment was so intense I couldn't even tell my closest friends. I felt like I had to hide my voice because it was such an unpopular opinion. A year went by and I was constantly afraid of expressing my thoughts because I thought it meant being alone. My throat felt more and more strangled as the days went by, and I started doubting the path that I chose to take. I thought, maybe I should have just followed everyone else. I felt so trapped. There was nowhere to turn, and it was too late to turn back. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. My only option was to face my focus inwards and reflect. Self-reflection was my method of escapism and was my last resort to overcome my fear of judgment. The process of self-reflection was surprisingly demanding. It was a brutal internal war that put me up against my unconquerable fear of judgment face to face. I was alone up against my darkest fear. However, just like gaming characters level up after fighting bosses, every time I analyzed and tried to understand my fear, I grew stronger. I eventually overcame my fear of judgment, and the fear that used to terrify me didn't seem so scary after all. Self-reflection was nasty and harsh, but it was a necessary step for me to break down the barrier of fear that stopped me from moving forward. Conquering my fear of judgment was the key that granted me access to my gaming controller. It was self-reflection that allowed me to level up from a villager into Steve. For the first time, I was able to identify with my truth and be confident in my decision. All this time, I'd been shaming myself for taking a different path, when it was the best decision of my life. When I first escaped the mainstream, I thought I would finally be free to walk my path. However, the reality was I was still a villager, and nothing had changed. I was still denied the ability to choose from an infinite range of possibilities because my fear of judgment acted as a boundary that I accepted as truth. I couldn't see past it. But once I started understanding my fear, I began to accept my truth, no matter what other people thought. I was finally able to break down the prison wall that I built around myself and focus on the choices that brought joy to me. Traveling was my definition of joy. I've always loved different cultures, foreign languages, and connecting with people with diverse backgrounds and perspectives. Appreciating exotic cultures, expanding my awareness of the world, and breaking down the wall between people has always been my dream. So I thought, why not live in a foreign country instead of learning about it? Why not actually live in Germany, France, or Spain? There, I would be forced to talk to new people, open myself to a new environment, learn the language, while having a close and intimate experience with the culture. What I needed was a sense of spontaneity and uncertainty, a life without a plan. After 12 long years of formal education, I needed to throw myself out there and force myself to learn about the world. I decided that my love for traveling was the best tool for me to achieve my goal of being independent, free, and passionate about what I do. Every school offers something special for each student. It is where people prosper in their own ways. The College of Life was the only place that offered the perfect program for me. You are Steve from Minecraft. You are in charge of your life. But if you ever feel like a villager, if you ever feel like your choices are repressed, reflect and ask yourself what it is that is restricting you. Rather than understanding it intellectually, pay attention to the sensations of your body and go with your intuitive feelings. It will pave a clear path not influenced by fear of outside influences, but solely on your truth. The answer is within you. The voice inside you will speak if you listen. Once you learn to hear that voice, you can finally understand who you are and what you want, regardless of what other people say or do. Once we can trust our hearts, we can finally achieve freedom of choice. There's no such thing as a right or wrong answer. What is right for someone else may not be right for you. We all have different destinations, and each one is special in its own way. So there's no need to compare. Comparing paths, heading towards different destinations, will always lead in a path that is not your own. We will never be happy living someone else's life. You were born an original, so don't be a copy. Be creative and create the life you want to live. And be confident in your decisions. The more you love your decisions, the less you'll need others to love them for you. Everyone else is living their life. It's time for you to spread your wings and be the creator of yours. What is the life that you want to create? Are you ready to finally start playing your game? Then go grab your gaming controller. Do you have it? Your possibilities are endless.
Wow, what an interesting and thorough reflection of overcoming your personal dilemma to make a life-changing decision. Thank you, Shuli, for sharing your story. I think we can all learn through her talk to stop being controlled by the fear of judgment and listen to our own heart. Next, we will be hearing from Marie Savor, who has recently written and illustrated her very own children's book. She will specifically be sharing the main message of her book, the power of seeing from another's perspective, and what that means to our community. Let's give it all for Maureen.
Let's set the scene. It's 2 a.m. one school night. You're working on an assignment due at the start of class the next day. At this point in the night, you're running on pure adrenaline and desperation, clearly heading into all-nighter territory. You can't help but wonder why you've put yourself in this position yet again when it's made things so much harder for yourself than they need be. Nietzsche once said, "The worst enemy you can meet will always be yourself." How many situations can you think of where the thing holding you back was none other than yourself? You know, that little voice in your head. The one that whispers, you can't do it. You don't want to do it right now. You should just give up. Until you find yourself in situations like our 2 a.m. conundrum. Meet our inner critic, our own worst enemy. I call mine Fred. Fred and I recently went over a particularly rough patch when I was working on a project for the Impact program at my school. The Impact program is a class that allows students to pursue independently driven passion projects. Inspired by the impact children's books had on me growing up, I decided to write and illustrate a children's book of my own. The story follows a little boy called Tommy. Tommy sees the world full of colors, but Tommy has a problem. No one else seems to see these colors. Not the bright yellow joy of the violinist in the park, nor the blue sadness of the grandpa across the street. Tommy and his family decide to visit the glasses store and its storekeeper to understand what's going on. And so the story begins. Though I wasn't expecting it in the least, this project would become one of the hardest things I've ever set my mind on doing. But what made it hard wasn't necessarily the technical difficulty of illustrating a whole book with very limited prior illustration experience. What made it hard was none other than myself, my inner critic, Fred. Be it for 2 a.m. conundrums or personal projects, we all have to deal with our inner critic. So here's a few things I learned facing Fred and his 3 most common refrains. The first thing our inner critic loves to start with: you can't do it. When I first started working on this project, I would spend hours looking at all these amazing illustrations, wondering how it's even possible to create art that seems to thrum with life, art that defines childhoods. I mean, look at this. How do you get from a blank page to that? Fred's joyous refrain of "you can't do it" was exceedingly easy to believe when I had no idea how to even tackle these illustrations. Here's the thing. When we look at this image, what is it really made out of? And I don't mean a bunch of wild things. Let's go simpler. Simpler. There. Well, when I shifted my goal from telling myself I had to draw this to telling myself I had to draw this, suddenly it was a lot easier to believe I could actually do this. I broke the huge goal of illustration down into what was, for me, the most manageable task. Drawing one line, and then another, and then another, and then another, until all these simple lines actually started to look like something. Projects, and by that I mean any personal undertaking, may seem gargantuan, impossible, implausible. But each and every project can be broken down into smaller components. So when you don't know where to start, try to identify your most manageable task. Learning a new piece of music? Start with the first measure. Trying to get back in shape for the sports season? Start with 5 push-ups a day. Find your simple lines, and suddenly, daunting tasks will seem that much more approachable. Our inner critic's second refrain: you don't want to do it right now. Normally, drawing is a way to have fun, to express myself, to release emotions. So technically, I should have no problem wanting to work on my illustrations, right? In comes the stress, the deadlines, the expectations, the fear of failure. Nobel Prize-winning researchers Kwan and Tedx found that when making decisions, people take into greater considerations the negative aspects of an event as opposed to the positive ones. So the more stressful this project became, the more negative aspects there were to override the positive aspects. This gives Fred and our inner critics the perfect opening to convince us, in fact, we don't want to work on our project right now, that it would be much easier to procrastinate. So let's go watch Netflix instead of basking in the somber colors of stress. But what if we were to introduce a wild card? A way to reintroduce some color into the picture? Whenever I found myself not wanting to work, I tried to tempt myself by associating simple positive treats with working on my project. I've been wanting to listen to that new album, so I might as well work on my illustrations while I listen. Or maybe I can catch up on my favorite podcast while I draw, I would tell myself. Long term, what will keep you going is your love for what you're doing. But simple positive associations like these definitely help get your foot into the door. So create colorful positive associations, like the bright colors Tommy sees, to help you counteract the dark colors of stress. And last but not least, inner critic refrain number 3. You should just give up. I wish I could say I was so determined to finish this project that I didn't waver once in my resolve. The reality is, I almost gave up when I finished the lines. I almost gave up when I finished the colors. Hearing Fred's refrains of, you can't do it, you don't want to do it right now, over and over and over again, I started to believe that I would never be able to do it, that I would never want to work on it. Finding my most manageable task, creating positive associations, those definitely helped day by day. But to really push through, I needed a light at the end of the tunnel, a goal to strive for. Whenever I doubted, I remembered why I embarked on this project in the first place. I wanted to tell a story I thought mattered, the story of Tommy and empathy. When Tommy enters the glasses store, he tries on the different pairs of glasses his family recommends. Through each pair, he sees the world as his different family members see it. With the help of the slightly magical store owner, he realizes everyone sees the world in a different way, through their own lens, and that's okay. Each perspective he learns to see only makes his own view of the world more beautiful. Wanting to tell this story is a large part of what kept me going. But let's be real. When you're tired, stressed, hanging on to your sanity by a thread, personal whys can start to feel a little bit idealistic. Having external motivators like the class I was taking, or even working on this TEDx talk, definitely helped keep me pushing forward as well. So find your personal why, and combine that with external motivators that will keep you motivated and light your way to the end of the tunnel. So what's next? Just like Tommy, my own perspective on life has broadened through this experience as well. I've realized that in the end, I don't know if I completely agree with Nietzsche that we are our own worst enemy. Yes, our inner critics can hold us back, but we can also learn to take the bite of them away. We can find our simple lines, our most manageable task. We can create positive associations as colorful as Tommy's colors. We can keep our goal in mind, the light at the end of the tunnel. If we change our perspectives and learn how to better respond to and manage our inner critics, maybe instead of fearing them, we can work with them. Maybe instead of them being our enemies, they can be our friends. So, Fred, let's be friends. And like Tommy at the end of the book, suddenly I understood, and the world was more beautiful for it.
Thank you, Maureen, for your incredible talk on your self-published book on empathy. Your message of dealing with our own inner critiques and overcoming that personal barrier with different attitudes and mind tools is an important lesson to be heard by many of us. Before we close our first event, we will be having a short intermission break featuring Claire Kim. Claire, who is currently a senior, will be sharing her deep passion for art and design. Let's welcome Claire to the screen. Thank you, Claire, for sharing your artwork with us. You have painted a new dimension to our theme, Reflections. Although this event is virtual, let's have a big round of applause for our speakers for their remarkable speeches. We could really see all the hard work they have put in, and their words have truly inspired us all today. Before we close our first day of events, let's hear from this year's TEDx organizer, Kwan.
Hello everyone. First, on behalf of my TEDx team, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today for our first day of our conference this year. Today we heard from 4 different student voices from various topics, ranging from battling body and health struggles to the overcoming of a personal dilemma to make a life-changing decision, and lastly, the value of empathy. Though these topics greatly vary from one another, all of these talks centered upon our theme of reflections starting from ourselves. As individuals in the world, we all hold unique beliefs and values for the way of life we live in. Since last year, so many global events such as the spread of the coronavirus have had a tremendous impact on our lives. Our topic of reflections embodies the significance of taking a step back from the global or bigger stage and carefully looking back at our own thoughts. As much as we heard from our speakers' reflections, I hope you yourself also had the opportunity to step back and reflect as well. Though the 4 talks that we heard today were extremely eye-opening, this is only half of what we have prepared for you this year. Tomorrow, we'll be hearing from 4 other speakers on their own stories of reflections. It will be accessible on YouTube Premiere at the same time as today. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great rest of your evening, and I can't wait to see you back on screen tomorrow. Thank you.